afternoon. Community Foundation supporters and friends, and some of my own personal friends, thank you, Mr. Johnson and Representative Reinert, for your insights on building momentum in our community through generosity and civic engagement. And on behalf of the Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial Board of Directors, I thank you all for the opportunity to address so many community leaders on the issue of inclusiveness. When ISD 709 invited my husband Robin to speak at Duluth High School's last February for Black History Month, I asked him, "What are you going to say?" And he said, "I'm going to talk about the contributions of African Americans." And I said, "Well, I know you're not going to talk about the first black astronaut or that a black man invented the traffic light. You're obviously going to go a lot deeper." Give me a second. I know. Oh, I got it. The greatest contributions of African Americans was the civil rights movement, because their suffering and their nonviolent resistance gave them the moral authority to call all of us to meet American ideals of justice, equality, and freedom. And he said with some degree of amazement, "You do understand me. Spouses, especially husbands, you know that nothing makes a partner happier than when you read her mind. And it's healthy for your relationship." Inclusiveness is more than tolerance and political correctness. It is celebration and embrace of differences. It is the will to question one's own perceptions in an effort to understand another's. My church declared itself a multicultural, multi-ethnic, anti-racist congregation last summer. And as the Dismantling Racism team prepared to lead services earlier this month, I asked us to acknowledge the fact that Peace Church is 98% white. We're not multi-ethnic and multicultural. Given Duluth's demographics and Peace Church's liberal theology, our congregation might never even have a critical mass of people of color, much less a majority. But until such time, the congregation has work to do right now to prepare hearts and minds to live in diversity and to unravel, decipher the system in which we live. People of color have striven mightily for justice since our beginnings as a nation. We have come as far as we have because we believed in the truth of our cause and because we found allies among people of conscience who might otherwise just have gone along with the system as it was. I believe in allies. In the anti-racism study dialogue circles, allies are people who choose to uncover their role in perpetuating an unfair economic system. At Community Action Duluth, allies are partners who support our participants as they work to lift themselves out of poverty. And I appreciate our Executive Director, Angie Miller, and all my colleagues every day for the opportunity and indeed the privilege and the powerful joy of doing this work. I have a story that I want to share. When I was little in 3rd grade, I was the only Asian student in a class of 30, and we sat in rows of little desks facing the front of the room, facing the chalkboard, and our teacher at her big wooden desk. One day, for some reason or another, Miss Chido got up and she left the room. And within minutes, I was surrounded. The entire class had ganged up on me. Have you ever been cornered on a playground or in a locker room? I don't know how, but I stood up and I walked out just as the school principal came to our doorway. And he saw me and asked, "Why are you in the hall?" What I said was, "Everyone is making fun of me." What he heard was, "Everyone is hurting me." And then my principal took my hand, walked me back into the class, and of course all the kids froze. He stood with me before them and said, "She is one of the best students in the school, and you will not treat her this way." I thank him to this day. He believed me, he protected me, and armored me for life with an inner sense of self and faith in the existence of heroes, people of conscience who will stand up for justice no matter how unpopular. But over the years, I've also wondered, how did it affect the other 29 children to see this? What did it mean to witness this intervention? Did it help them to grow up to be better, stronger men and women themselves? I spoke at UMD on April 13th at an Asian Pacific students event called Empowered Asian Women in the Media. It was called Empowered Asian American Women in the Media. This was one day before 2 freshmen on Facebook gave us quite the rarity, an entire, irrefutable, real-time transcript of their racial attack on an African American student. And on May 3rd, I joined some of these same Asian Pacific students and many others who marched in silent protest through Duluth to a campus rally at Romano Gym. To my sorrow, 19 days had passed, and the students were still pleading with their principal to intervene on their behalf. Lynching never stopped with just the victims it killed. The tactic was always intended to terrorize whole communities into submission. And the Facebook attack didn't just hurt one student. It crystallized the unease and isolation that is academic life for many students of color on our city's campuses. And I say that we need to do better than this, and that's why Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial's mission to foster racial justice only began when we dedicated our memorial in 2003. For we imagine a community that extinguishes poverty and excludes no one from reaching their full potential. We imagine transcending superficial political correctness to address race and racism on much harder fronts. Economic disparities, racial gaps, generational wealth and poverty, all of these have historical roots. Systemic racism is an uncomfortable truth. 2.5 years ago, Clayton Jackson McGee decided to safeguard our scholarship with a permanent endowment. And now the Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial Scholarship Fund is established, fully capitalized at the Community Foundation. We decided to send some messages. People of color must understand and do participate in and contribute to the civic and economic life of this community. And when people of conscience ally and pool their resources with us, the results are truly spectacular. As an organization, Clayton Jackson McGee has had a banner year. We released our DVD, Bringing the Truth to Light, a community call for racial equity in our schools, and we held our first in-service with ISD 709 to train teachers in the use of our history curriculum. We won the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits Award for Anti-Racism Initiative, and last week we awarded our 6th annual scholarship to Duluth East graduate Fossam Buma Foncham, and our 3rd honorable mention grant to Gretel Lee, also of Duluth East. Our mission to foster racial justice has brought Duluth an international reputation for promoting healing and reconciliation by facing history and ourselves. People from around the country call and they ask, how did you do this? How did you build that memorial? And what can we learn from your experience? And I tell them that CJM is effective because every single member of our volunteer board brings a personal network of allies into our mighty circle of support. We do not work alone. We call on all our connections and all our resources to achieve what we've accomplished, but we also take our own steps to self-sufficiency. On June 9th this year, we opened the Week of Remembrance to recognize and reflect on, first, the 90th anniversary of the Clayton Jackson McGee tragedy, but also the 10th anniversary of the founding of the Memorial Building Committee, which is now Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial Incorporated. On June 12th, we present Older Than America, Georgina Lightning's film about the Indian boarding school experience and its continuing repercussions in our community. This will be at Mitchell Auditorium with the writer-director Georgina Lightning in attendance. She will be leading a discussion following the screening. And on June 15th, we gather at Minnesota Power Plaza for a march along Superior Street, going past the old jail from where the 3 young men were taken, up 2nd Avenue East for the annual Day of Remembrance observance at our memorial. And we look forward also to the arrival of Freedom Ship Amistad, and I anticipate another chance to walk its decks as I did when I was in Boston Harbor. All of this is happening because there are people here in Duluth who believe that inclusiveness is crucial to building the community that we want to live in. That inclusiveness, along with citizen generosity and civic engagement, drive the engines of a thriving, sustainable community. And I look to all of you here today to lead in your own sphere of influence, at work, at school, at home, at worship, and to find the allies that you know you need to support and challenge you to do your best, to support your best and wisest intentions. And know that Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial is here to support you, just as the Community Foundation and so many individuals and organizations in this city support CJM.